Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today to hear about the state of the marketing operations professional. Before we get started, I want to go through just a few housekeeping items with all of you. So today's webinar should take about 30 minutes. We will definitely share the slides with you and the recording in the next 48 hours. Any questions that you have throughout the webinar, please put into the chat Q&A, and we will do our best to answer them either today or we will get back to you following the webinar. And if you need any assistance throughout our time together today, feel free to reach out also through that Q&A. So now I'm going to introduce you to our panelists. Thank you guys for joining today. First, we have Mike Rizzo. He joins us from Marketing Ops. He is actually the founder, though he's also a career-long marketing operations professional. Mike, do you want to say hi?
Hello, everybody. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Kason.
We're very excited to have you. Second, but definitely not second to us, is Lucy DeLeon from Citrix. She joins us as the Senior Manager of Marketing Operations. She also leads a virtual global demand center there and is really responsible for the email channel as well as customer experience best practices and various programs. So thank you also for joining us today.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me. Hi, everyone.
Absolutely. Perfect. So now we're going to jump in with some pretty specific questions to get started. Really would like to learn from each of you kind of how you got into marketing operations and also, since being in marketing ops, how the landscape has shifted. Lucy, want to start?
Sure, no problem. So my journey started with Citrix, actually with customer experience. So that's where my background came from. And through that, in supporting research with different product, I moved into the role of supporting the team that sends out emails. So it was a very generic, we have a need, can you fill this? And moved into a role where I'm supporting the email requests. And that also folded in myself into marketing operations. So that's the reason why I called out having a CX background, but also in my previous life, I've also managed different programs. So those different skill sets have definitely leveraged me in marketing ops and seeing how that is definitely required when you are collaborating with all of the different arms within marketing and also marketing ops.
Absolutely, that's so true. Yeah. And then Mike, we know you have a slightly less traditional entrance into MOPS, if there is a traditional entryway into ops. So kind of how did you end up here?
Yeah, I think the traditional quote unquote way to get into marketing ops is that it is totally untraditional. Just this week, I asked a few folks on LinkedIn, about sort of their journey into marketing ops, and a number of the comments today alone were, last night and today were all about, I fell into it. And we hear that constantly in the community. Like, I really just fell into the role. But yeah, from my personal story, like the sort of brief on it is, I took a job right out of college to work at an ad tech company. And I learned a little bit about coding ads to fit onto a server. So think like, your Google Ad Network kind of stuff, right? And from there, that sort of like taste of HTML made me think, gosh, like maybe I could be a marketer that like builds websites and does emails and stuff like that. And then I quickly learned that like coding was not my favorite thing, but I really liked the marketing piece. And I took the next role that I took was this now what we would call a SaaS company. They said, hey, can you just help us figure out how to send a newsletter? And like that spiraled rapidly into, well, I don't know how to do that. So like, let's go find a tool. And, and inbound was really new at the time. And in that role, I did a couple of crazy things like moving someone off of Salesforce for the CRM to Sugar CRM, which everybody's like, what? Why would you do that? They were bootstrapping is the short answer. And then I also had to do migrations between Pardot to Acton because Pardot got acquired by Salesforce and we had migrated off of Salesforce. So to say I fell into it is sort of true, right? Like they asked me to figure out how to solve a newsletter problem, and it turned into well, this stack isn't working for the business at this stage, so let's figure that piece out. So yeah, non-traditional. I also did a bunch of events along the way too.
Perfect. Love that. I won't lie, I have a similar experience myself.
Nice.
Perfect. Jumping into the next question. If you guys in our audience have seen and downloaded the State of the Marketing Operations Professional Report, you'll also see that one of the top KPIs around marketing, and it's specifically marketing ops, is pipeline as a measure. So while it's the first thing most marketing teams measure, really would love to hear how you guys kind of prioritize and make sure that marketing operations efforts are tied to generating pipeline. So Lucy, is this something you measure in your role, or what are your team's KPIs?
Yeah, so we definitely have that alignment with our marketing marketers around what their KPIs are and around what their scorecards are, and also around their sales, the sales goals. And this actually, pulls obviously into reporting that gets us into understanding, where's the marketing source of these, the pipeline, as well as attribution. And it drills down into the product. And when it comes to marketing operations, we also drill into our own areas, and specifically with the email channel, where we're looking at the click to open rates, and measuring how our emails are performing. And then also just overarching in marketing ops, we look at our operational efficiency, as well as looking at how we are managing our data enhancement and how we're making improvements, so we are able to have the appropriate segmentation for our marketers so they can do their targeting, and also how we're handling our lead velocity. How quickly are we able to get people through the funnel? So there are different areas that we do measure in ops, and it's a beast. It's a lot to manage, and it's also a challenge to also level set that we're agreeing on the same thing. So it's always a work in progress. And
yeah,
Mike,
I love that. I was just gonna say, yeah, it's definitely always a work in progress. I think this is an interesting one for me, just from the perspective of our question in the research. The first year we did it was a bit more open-ended, and this year we sort of consolidated that raw data into sort of a set of like standardized pick list values, right? And this still showed up as one of the top ways in which marketing operations professionals are getting measured. And Kason, you and I talked about this the other day, but like it's hard for me to see something like, hey, it's about pipeline and have it tied directly to a marketing ops role, because there's still a little bit of gray in there. I hope that for the organizations, if you're watching this, or if you're a marketing operations professional and you're trying to advocate for how you could be measured, I hope that it's not, they're holding you to generating leads, right? Or generating pipeline. For me, that's not what a marketing ops role is about. It's about throughput, right? And making sure that pipeline moves through the funnel as effectively and as efficiently as possible. The data is being enriched. All of the steps are being met. The right teams are being alerted at the right time in the right way. And, I think those are the ways in which I see pipeline as like an associated metric for in terms of key performance indicator. I think just from my own experience, I spent time measuring the time with which it took a lead to go from at the organization I was at, HubSpot, to Salesforce. The integration says it's supposed to take a certain amount of time. I was in complete disbelief because my SDRs, and some of you know how this is, they're knocking at the door going, I'm not getting any leads. They're not coming in. And I'm trying to build workarounds, right? And so we built a way to measure that, and looking at the date stamps and doing some simple math in Salesforce, built a little like speedometer graph. It was great. And then I went back to the HubSpot team and I said, this is not coming over anywhere near the time that you're saying it's supposed to. And as a marketing ops professional, when you're being measured against pipeline, speed to lead is super important, right? We've already talked about that a lot in the history of marketing ops. But don't be afraid to put those measures in place and keep a little barometer on what's going on. And then definitely don't be afraid to reach out to the product teams that say that this stuff is supposed to happen a certain way. So what ended up happening from my conversations with HubSpot is they ended up really, really improving on the integration time from a lot of the raw data that I helped, and a number of other customers ended up validating, that type of stuff. So that's the way you can, start thinking about, like, how does MOPS and pipeline sort of fit together? I hope it's not you're generating top of funnel leads. Is the punchline, I guess.
Perfect. Mike, thank you for pushing on HubSpot for all of us. And I love that both of you guys really spoke about kind of that velocity and how do we get the leads to the teams and move things through as quickly as possible, and how can we contribute even if MOPS isn't generating. Love that. So that also kind of helps to our next question, especially since depending on the company and the team, ops professionals are tied to some revenue generating KPI. They're also, especially related to that, they're really hoping for more senior titles, more defined roles, and job clarity. Usually, the more senior titles do come with impact to pipeline. So especially depending on those, how can we really make more senior titles, more job clarity? How can we make that a reality?
Who's jumping in first on that one?
Yeah.
I mean,
Mike.
I think this is part of the reason why collectively, the marketingops.com community, the MoPros, right? As a group, we all are responsible for this. I am so thrilled that I get to work alongside, thousands of folks that are trying to push for more clarity and more definition in these roles. As a sort of, I don't know, brand mission, I guess. I don't know, like this is definitely core to us. And to that end, in the research this year, we worked alongside, I want to say 10 to, I'm going to give it a broader range, like 10 to 15 folks to craft 3 templates that are sort of guides on creating an entry-level role, maybe a mid-level role, and more senior, like director level on up, on what does that job really look like, and how do we help someone craft a job description to fit those different sort of standards. And by working alongside the community, as I sort of started with this whole thing, we are able to pull and get validation from experts that say, like, hey, this is sort of a good jumping off point for what I would think is more entry versus more senior. And, the problem today is like so many of these job descriptions are, you're going to do email marketing and social and this and paid and demand gen and run the events. And you're also going to run and own On24. And don't forget, don't let any integration ever break. Like, wait, what? So I know I'm rambling a bit, but I'm excited that as a community, we've crafted these guides and these job descriptions. And I want to continue to lean in on that so that people can give us the feedback so we can pass that back up to the hiring managers and the executives to create that clarity.
Yeah. One area that I do see within marketing operations, in the beginning it was very linear. And with that linear, there was just no ability for us to support a dynamic marketing organization. And over time, it was defining, what are those specific roles? What do we need when it comes to, segmentation? Having someone who has an SME around segmentation, to an SME around lead management, to even email production. What does that look like? And so, just having that linear perspective, it really is kind of static in the sense of there's just a lot more dynamics to marketing ops than what people realize, and you need to have that in order to produce, great campaigns, a tech stack that works for everyone, making sure that the technology is being used in such a way that it's being optimized. So that's great, Mike, that's you've created that, because it really helps add that framework that people need support in understanding. And I really hope that down the road that we see more marketing operation organizations continue to build on being dynamic. Because it's required, just because we're just moving so quickly, things are changing quickly, and it's just an important key to having a smooth oiled machine when it comes to operationalizing campaigns.
Yeah. I actually just shared with a colleague of mine the other, I think this was Tuesday this week or something. I was like, hey, I watched the sports ball game on Monday night, as many will say. It's a football game on Monday night. Yep. And I played football growing up, and there's something that they talk about in that sport where, each person on the team, you've got one job, right? You've got your job, especially on defense. You've got a job, you have a region that you need to cover or what have you. But the core of the message is that you have this thing, and if you own it and if you do it well, the team will be there to support you, because someone else is behind you, or if you're the last person, they're in front, and if you understand their responsibilities, you can potentially win. Yeah. Right. And so, speaking to your point around, having sort of dedicated functions or really clear focused on the role that you're trying to perform, whether you're at a startup or at an enterprise, like, I know startups struggle that you can't have that much headcount, right? But there is a balance that needs to be met, and a marketing ops person should not have to wear all of the hats. You do need to try to create some clarity on that, right? So anyway, it's just furthering the point that you have a dedicated responsibility set, and that's it.
Yeah. Agreed.
Perfect. You guys are setting me up for my next point I wanted to call out. There was a quote from the study that I really wanted to get you guys to react to. So the quote was, in general, I'd love if orgs actually understood the different roles within marketing operations and allowed members to specialize over being utility players. How does hearing this and that survey respondents actually called this out and said it, how does that make you feel, especially in light of what you guys just shared?
I think it's spot on. It definitely echoes my feelings, and certainly the feelings that I probably have now just picked up by osmosis from all the folks in the community, and at our summer camp events and all of that stuff. I feel like I could almost guess who actually quoted this, even though it was anonymous. But that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think I echo that as well. I mean, it's something where I love the analogy of the football, because you got to have those people who are specialized, and that is their wheelhouse. And when you have that person who gets and has that function defined, you can move so much faster. And that's really, to get certain campaigns out to market is going to be key. If you have people who specialize and have that pillar of foundation, you at the same time, you can also get creative. You can also think outside of the box when you have someone who knows a niche so well that they can tell you what's feasible and what's not. I think that's where marketing operations is very important within an organization, is to also be that voice of reason. What can you actually do with your current tech stack, your current marketable database? I totally feel that it's very key.
Yeah, I love that. And as you become the SME, and as you develop that confidence, right, through the function that you perform, being that the art of the possible is what I like to say. You hinted at it just now too, right? Teaching people like, hey, here's what we've got. Here's what you can do, right? Let me show you the art of the possible within what we've already got for our go-to-market tech stack. And then beyond that, if you're still faced with challenges, okay, well, I can probably help figure those things out, depending whether it's me or another person on the team, right? So you become an internal consultant, more or less. I also I wouldn't I would be remiss if I didn't mention like sort of the concept of the 4 pillars of marketing operations. I think it's a super solid foundation to think about. So go Google that. You'll find it on the web pretty quickly. There was also an episode we did with Amy Goldfein, Feinfein, I apologize if I butchered your name. It was WTF is marketing operations on our podcast, Opscast. We talk about the 4 pillars there too. So I would encourage you that sort of want to think about, well, how do you maybe specialize even further? If you haven't looked into those, go check it out.
Nice.
Perfect. Love that. Okay, getting a little less out of the weeds by getting more into the weeds. One thing that marketing operations is always responsible for, tech stack decisions. So would love to hear from you guys kind of how you make tech stack decisions, and then also when making those, how you get buy-in from leadership on any additional resources needed from them, especially the level of budget.
Woo. I love this one because it's a loaded question, loaded answers, and it's not black and white. From my experience of taking a look at the tech stack, we really need to assess, what is the current skill set within your organization. Taking a look at how marketers also approach your tech stack. What is their knowledge? What is, how savvy are they? Also doing a deep dive within marketing operations. And, you got to look at everything from production to lead management. And for us, it's been getting down and making sure that we understand the tech stack from a not so customized perspective, but just making sure that we optimize what's available. And a lot of times we're answering our own questions. It's right there. So one thing is not to get too distracted with it's a squirrel platform to make things better. You got to really make things work and be efficient. And then also when it comes to looking at your tech stack, what is really scalable? Do you have the resources to actually manage it? I think sometimes people get really excited about adding something that new, but it's like, who's going to maintain it? That's always the question when it comes around tech stack decisions. So it's one of those things where it's a huge balancing act on what is the current need, what is your horizon view perspective on where you're going to see marketing and where that's going to be going and march forward from there. It's definitely not an easy question to answer.
Yeah, I agree. Not an easy question to answer. From the headcount perspective, this is twofold, right? But from the headcount perspective, we're really good at operationalizing, documenting. I would argue that a lot of the marketing ops folks just sort of have that desire to want to do those kinds of things. And so, process is ideally not a 4-letter word for us. We actually sort of enjoy establishing process. Slow down to speed up is something that we say a lot, or at least I say a lot. I don't know. But from the idea of getting headcount and all of that, it's going to take a minute as you seat yourself into a role. If you're sort of new into the function, maybe just a couple of years in, you don't know what you don't know, but you're going to be inundated with a lot. So build the system to be able to try to track your work. Don't log the number of hours necessarily on how much time you're spending on stuff unless you want to take it to that level, go for it. But definitely look at some metrics like how many campaigns are getting out the door and how many are in the backlog. If you tried to justify, I'll shamelessly plug, hey, if I were to get a tool like Knack, or if I were to get a tool like StackMoxie or what have you, these things are going to help reduce the time with which it takes to go to market, or reduce the time with which I am trying to understand what's breaking in my tech stack or in my lifecycle flows. Mm-hmm. And so that opens up more time for us to launch more campaigns if you're sort of in the campaign ops sector. So build the systems to be able to try to understand that piece so that you can advocate for headcount or advocate for a tool to relieve some of the pressure from your team. And so, yeah, I would say just try to figure out the ways in which you want to measure your sort of output of whatever it is that you're being asked to do, from kind of tying it back to that earlier question, right? Like, how are you impacting pipeline? A lot of time that's just launching programs, right? So to use Marketo speak, programs.
Perfect. Thank you guys. Love the shameless plug there as well. We appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay, so I also want to call out another quote from the study. A lot of organizations are not proactive about investing in marketing ops, but they also want to reap the benefits of a good marketing operations team, such as good reporting and attribution. So would love to kind of hear where this attitude came from, and if either of you have experienced anything like this in past roles.
And we lost Lucci for a moment. I think she's coming back.
I think she's coming back. So Mike, let's start with you while she's troubleshooting.
Yeah.
Why do you think we've seen this kind of attitude and maybe the shift here?
I think that it's easy to get caught up in I need to go to market fast, right? Any business, whether you're enterprise or startup, it's easy to get caught up in, we got to launch a campaign, we got to go, we got to do this. The message needs to be out in the market. And as I said a moment ago, as I was rambling, slow down to speed up is really important. Build the process to be able to launch campaigns faster, and try to educate, if you're an organization that is thinking about how do I build my marketing team up, having an established foundation, basically a pipeline that's been laid to move data between if you're all in one CRM and tech stack like on HubSpot, great, but you still have to have all of the pipe laid in order to build the house on top of that, right? Can't build a house without any plumbing. And so make sure that all of that is in place. And the only way to do that is to be proactive about hiring someone who knows how to do some object-oriented systems thinking, right? So organizations, they don't understand how much it's going to slow you down later when you don't have someone who's already sort of built that foundational element. I've talked to so many demand generation marketers out there that step into an organization and they're like, oh my gosh, like none of the stuff that I need to be able to measure our efforts is ready. And there are, bless all of you demand gen experts out there that have the skills to maybe pick it up and wear that hat for a minute and start figuring it out. But there are a lot of them that don't want to do that, nor do they have any desire to go learn it. And so you're going to hire a demand gen person that's like, sorry, I don't know how, I can't help measure, right? I'm going to do a lot of stuff for you, but I'll just be using the native tool to tell you how things are going. And that's not tied to the pipeline, right? It's like, yeah. So, yeah. Lucci, welcome back.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
No worries. We're glad you're back. So just in case you dropped off while I was reading the quote and asking the question, would love to hear if you have experienced in any past roles an organization that really wanted to reap the benefits of marketing ops without having invested in the team.
Yes. I think I've experienced, within my own organization of people hearing, the pros of how marketing ops is able to generate and, get emails out the door in a way that, we're able to track the data, have certain compliance already in place, and it's smooth sailing. And it's really interesting how people come in and think, oh, yeah, just go ahead and can you support partner comms, or can you support certain sales comms to a certain level? And it's interesting to enlighten individuals to say, hey, this is a whole added layer of an operational team. You have to have people who understand their current tech stacks to potentially blend to ours. And it's one of those conversations that happen, but when it comes to making it happen, it's extremely difficult. And there has to be larger conversations at the top around how do we unify, operationalizing, in partnership with marketing as well as other ops. So that's where it can be a super big challenge. I do see it happen. And yeah, looking at, reporting and attribution and all of those good things, they all need to be in alignment and speak the same language. So it's a huge challenge in today's organizations, for sure.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, we've got 2 final questions. So getting to some of the good stuff. Not that everything hasn't been wonderful so far. Definitely would love to hear from you guys in the study. Is there anything in there that maybe surprised you that it just floated up, or maybe how many people responded a certain way?
I'll just respond from that study is that from what I saw, and unfortunately I didn't get an in-depth review, but there was some amazing insight. Mike, you can definitely speak to more about what popped up.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm like shocked and odd or surprised necessarily. I think I have the unique benefit of just having a lot of conversations with folks on a pretty regular basis. The thing that I would call out that I hope to see a change in is, and it sort of touches on all of the stuff we were talking about before, is the concepts around the feelings. So we ask about 3 questions. We say, do you feel? And then they rate on a sliding scale, right? Compensated fairly for your level of experience, understood by your organization, and valued by your organization. Those are understood and valued are 2 very different things. You can be understood, but maybe not valued. What was interesting to me about that, and maybe surprising is the right word, is that they all sort of fell at the same level. They're all about a 5 out of 7. Relative to last year's data, that there's some improvement there in some of those. But I'd really like to see the average trend, more heavily toward, hey, yeah, people really understand what I do, and they really value what I do. And so I think, again, leaning in on, hey, we're a community, we're building this research. It is our responsibility to try to champion the good of, hey, this is why what you should understand about the role and why you should value it. And then it's up to all of you out there to go, input that value back into your organization. So yeah, I'd say those are particularly interesting numbers to keep an eye on.
Perfect. I love that. I feel like a lot of times with marketing operations, they know it's important and they know they need a marketing operations person or team, but they have no idea what they actually do.
Totally.
So love that. Okay, so our final question. What do you guys see as the future of marketing operations?
I'm going to let Luci go first.
Yeah.
Domination.
Domination.
What I really feel, the future of marketing ops is just becoming that pillar and influencer when it comes to how marketing is strategizing, as well in partnership with all the other, we haven't mentioned omni-channel, but also working with the other areas of web and social media. I really feel that, marketing operations is going to have that stronghold into those conversations. And having that knowledge base is going to be really important for marketing operations to understand and be a part of. So I just see it just growing as far as knowledge base expanding and just even becoming more dynamic than what it is today. So if people are already doing that, kudos to you. Within my organization, we're getting to that point. It's very exciting. It's exciting to see what is possible with bringing in these other channels into the mix.
I love that. I think, yeah, I'm going to go back to the art of the possible. I think the future of marketing operations and the professionals that are practicing this role and pushing it forward. I do expect that you will have senior leadership show up more frequently. I do expect there will be directors and VPs and SVPs. I don't know what the chief level marketing operations CMOO, I don't know. But I do expect senior leadership to start showing up more. And the reason for that is the executive function is starting to realize how critical this role is for the go-to-market effort. If you want to enter a new market, GDPR and compliance, folks, right? Like, how do we deal with that? What's the tech that we need? Like, yeah, you can partner with IT and those folks to make sure that that is done in the right way, and you get all the right sort of servers in the right locations and all of those things, but there's still a whole component of consultancy that has to happen there. And marketing operations, all of you folks have such a unique opportunity to be able to look at a very broad landscape of the art of the possible and then advise the C-suite on how do you bring new products to market and how does that trickle down to the rest of your team. I don't think you own the entire revenue funnel. I don't think you're RevOps. I do believe that sales ops, CS ops needs to be there partnered with you. But I think this lens that we get to look at things through, because we touch so many of the tools, just really begets the opportunity for you to become a senior leader at the C-suite level.
Yeah.
So domination.
There you go.
I think domination is definitely the short answer.
Yeah.
So perfect. I do want to thank again, Lucy and Mike for joining us today. So we have only barely scratched the surface of the state of the marketing operations professional today. Definitely encourage you guys, if you haven't yet, go download, read through the report. You will also be receiving a link to it and a copy of that shortly with our follow-up from today. If you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to reach out to us at hello@knack.com. And really, again, just want to thank everyone for taking time to join us for the webinar today. Appreciate you carving out time in your busy schedules.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Bye all.